Hey everyone, James from TDB here, bringing you another Inbetweenisode. Today I am going to be talking about your tea values. In other words, what do you value in tea? Less of, values as far as a human judgment, but things that you look at. And I was thinking about this the other day, especially when it comes to teas that can age. There's a lot of different aspects that go into it, and certainly personal preferences play some part, and certainly there are some objective measures too, where people can generally agree. But people tend to fall all over the place on what they buy and what they like to drink and whatnot. And what happens when you have the additional factor of aging and storage and things like that is you have all kinds of choices. Do I want to buy a young, fresh Sheng Pu'erh that maximizes the material from a certain area, or would I rather have something that may be a little lesser material perhaps, but more is a humble drink but has had years of storage and whatnot? Or is there a way that I can accommodate both things at perhaps the additional cost, or maybe you can find kind of the perfect thing of all worlds? So the point is that there are a lot of different criteria, and in our heads we are doing these calculations, whether we know it or not, about what we actually want to drink when we're deciding what to drink, what to buy. And I think in some ways it's nice to take a step back and sort of deconstruct those different parameters. So when writing this outline for this video, I was looking at this in terms of just a couple different factors. For instance, material, especially, I'm going to talk mostly about raw pu'erh in this case, but I think these concepts could apply to a number of other different types of tea, ripe, oolongs, etc. Material, so you could look at material in a couple different ways. You could look at it in terms of like, hey, this is a tea from the Oolong area, this is a Munghai Tea Factory tea. You could sort of categorize it as like, oh, these are different Thai teas, or the just material quality. So there are a couple ways, that you could look at it in terms of your own preferences. So someone like myself may not really care for northern tea, and so I just simply avoid it at all times. And then of course the other two factors are storage and age. For me at least, I realize that I prioritize storage and age, I think, quite a bit more than other people. And part of that is just, you could say it's objective, you could say it's subjective, but in my case, I have a very difficult time fitting teas that taste younger into my rotation. And I'm pretty sensitive towards teas that are green. Not because they make me feel uncomfortable, just because I'd rather drink something else. And that's in the end what it comes down to, even if that something else is relatively quote unquote lesser material quality. And so really the two youngest teas that do squeak into my rotation that are after 2010 are really just the Belhong Yinji Zhenren Yufeng and the Bianhao Zhengjia Liangzi, and they just squeak in. I don't drink those teas particularly often, so most weeks I'm not even drinking one of those. So when I'm sampling from that decade, it's always a bit of an adjustment because I have to adjust towards tasting tea that is quite a bit younger. I also know that I have a strong preference for storage. Malaysian storage might be kind of the ideal, but I'm willing to accept all kinds of different storage, provided that it has, aging the tea along fairly quickly. So things like Kunming, not really my jam. Beijing, a lot of the modern contemporary Munghai Tea Factory teas are stored relatively dryly too, for my taste. So I do have certain preferences, certainly when it comes to how tea is stored too. And one reason why the Zhengjia Liangzi and Zhenren Yufeng can slide in there too is because they haven't had bone dry Kunming stored. They have had some aging going on, even if they are not quite as aged as other teas that I will drink. So the storage and age matter quite a bit, and I think the ultimate test that we kind of can put these through too is the speed test. And I think that is the ultimate decider on these things. How often do you actually want to drink this? And this has helped me realize that not only do I not want to drink young Sheng Pu'erh just a few times. Originally I was like, okay, well, I clearly am not going to be drinking young Sheng very often. But I'll have it like once a week. And then once a week became once a month, became basically never. And that is the answer for how often I want to drink younger Sheng Pu'erh. So I realize that I'm not the only person that drinks pu'erh, and people are going to have different thoughts on that. But drinking young Sheng is almost always a bit of a chore for myself, and I would almost always prefer to be having something a little bit different. So yeah, that is kind of some thoughts on this. So just thinking of it in terms of like a triangle, types of material, what region, material quality. You could definitely be kind of a material quality maximalist, and I think you're going to buy very different teas than someone like myself who has strong preferences at storage and stuff. The other final factor that I often take into account too is the type of storage that you can give the tea. If I have someone like Marco or Steens or someone that has successfully hotboxing, assuming they are doing so successfully from what I've heard, then my storage calculus, my buying calculus might be a little bit different, because I can then sort of achieve those aging results with tea that tastes a bit younger, so like a younger 7542, let's say, than buying something that is already closer to that endpoint. So because of that, my own situation as well as my own preferences, I will often opt for something that is closer towards that ideal rather than something that is a much bigger project. Another great example, I think, is Yeon. Yeon is not a place for material maximalists, and it's also not a place if you don't like their storage. So it hits, I wouldn't say a super narrow, but a somewhat limited amount of the actual people that are interested in Pu'erh. But if you do like those teas, if you like the storage and you're okay with the material, then it's a way to achieve a certain sort of profile without even like huge amounts of age. So you can buy teas that are relatively younger but have a much darker, more heavy, woody, fermented profile to them than something from the same age that has been stored in just about anywhere else, because they are storage specialists. So you're really prioritizing for achieving a certain different profile. Okay, so that answers this question. Let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you value personally in Pu'erh too. I know everyone is going to be a little bit different, but for myself, the storage, I've realized that the storage and the age contribute greatly to just how much I'm going to drink it. And of course, material matters. That doesn't matter at all in terms of this calculus, but I think compared to maybe your median Pu'erh drinker, it matters just a little bit less to me than those. Okay, so thank you all for tuning in. I will see y'all next time.